and welcome to another episode of the Hotspur Huddle. We are actually all back together. I mean, it's mainly been my fault the last couple of weeks while we haven't been together, but we are finally back, ladies and gents, and we've got a great one to talk about in terms of the January transfer window. So to do so, we'll say hello. So Nelson, great to be back with you. How are you?
I'm feeling good. As you can see, I was living in the wilderness whilst you were away, but I knew you were coming back, so I got the fresh trim, you see. I knew you were coming back, so I thought I had to make it nice for your comeback. But yeah, it's good to be back, Hollie. Good to be back.
Good. It's glad to have you here. Obviously, it's nice for me to be actually around as well, so it's going to be good fun tonight. And also the amazing Wes. Wes, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Nice of you to grace us with your presence, Hollie, as well. But yeah, the BTEC CBS panel is all back, everybody. We've got Cara, Big Meeks, and Henri, Big Titty Henri. So yeah, lots to get through, but looking forward to this one for sure.
Right. It'll definitely be a good one. Like I say, there's been a lot of transfer dealings for Spurs, maybe not so much for Arsenal, but we'll get into that one a bit further down the line. But obviously, tonight's show is sponsored by the amazing Kofa. So Wes, I'm going to let you do your thing and tell everybody what Kofa is.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've had to do this, by the way.
You can tell I'm trying to find the thing as well. There we go.
Yeah, so Kofa or Kickoff Football Academy Milton Keynes. We run lots and lots of different sessions in the Dele Alli, Leah Williamson and Kevin Danso country. So if you have a young son or daughter who is a keen and budding footballer, please send them our way. We'd love to help them on their footballing journey. We do have an upcoming football camp as well with limited numbers. So if you are stuck for any ideas for February half term, then please get in quick before all the spaces go.
Lovely stuff. So make sure you go check out Kofa as well. I want to welcome everybody in that's also tuning in. We've got Evo and we've got Stevo. So there we go. We're off to a fine start. But let's kick things off. Because obviously, Wes, like I say, it's been an interesting window for Spurs. I know we've had 3 players through the door. We've potentially had that Irish wonder kid as well. Please forgive me. It's been a little while since I've caught up with everything. But what have you made of Tottenham's dealings?
I mean, it's great that we got some players in, but I still have this feeling that we're short, and that we are still short in terms of personnel. I think we were crying out for a central midfielder and especially a 6. And then when I saw Steve Hitchin come out and say that we nearly signed Frankie de Jong, I absolutely cried inside because, as Nelson knows, Frankie de Jong was one of my favourite players to watch at once upon a time. So, yeah, I think, look, it was good that we got some positions in that we needed. Obviously, we needed a forward, tick, centre-half, tick, 2 ticks, because I know who it is. And, yeah, keeper, yeah, tick. And I think Kinski's come in and done really, really well, but I still feel like we are short, which is really, really frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Obviously, from a Spurs perspective, when I saw Tell through the door, Nelson, what were you kind of thinking? Because obviously, for us Spurs fans, it was kind of like, oh my God, it's actually going to happen. And it did, because obviously he turned down United and came to Spurs. It says, what did you make of that kind of transfer deal?
I was actually shocked because I think he had a lot of suitors, for him, and not shocked in the sense that I don't think Tottenham that you guys could have got him. I think it just, you mentioned, like the fact that it just actually went over the line was a shock when it actually happened. Seeing him in the shirt, and all that, I just felt it was a big shock. But that particular signing for me in particular is, if I'm as a neutral, it's actually quite an exciting signing. I think he's a young baller. I think he's done really well in the appearances that he's had, limited appearances that he's had for Bayern Munich, obviously playing kind of second fiddle to Kane and the other like wingers that you've got in Gnabry and Sane. And for him to come in and he's made impactful performances. Some have, I would say, they haven't been significant, but at least he's actually impacted them and changed the game. I know when he's come on, and that's earned him a couple of starts. So I think that particular one, Tell getting over the line, who knows what that could do for the season, but I think it is quite an exciting sign, and I think Spurs fans should look forward to that.
Yeah, I think we need something to look forward to, don't we, Wes? Obviously, Danso came through the door as well. I think I saw on Twitter today, Danso was part of the 9-0 defeat when he was at Southampton, but he did come on at half-time, and it was 5-0 at that point. So that makes me feel a little bit better. So what do you make of, obviously, Danso coming in as well, and the fact that, obviously, Rally Dragosin sadly obviously done his ACL in. So with that kind of respect, what have you kind of made of that signing as well?
Yeah, my mate Kev, big up Kev. Yeah, I used to kick ball with him once upon a time. Yeah, it was he's had an interesting journey. I think I said this on the Park Lane pod on Sunday. He's had an interesting sort of career path. Obviously, come through at MK Dons, and there was talk of him being a centre back from the coach's perspective, but I think at the time, him and his people, if you like, didn't necessarily see it. They thought, more of a forward player or a winger. And lo and behold, he's ended up being a centre back. So, yeah, it was, like I say, interesting career path. Come through at MK, went to Reading, then went to Germany, got absolutely shafted when he went to Southampton because Hassan Huttl started with a back three and then abandoned it fairly quickly. Which meant his game time then was extremely limited. But I like the fact he's then come back and sort of rebuilt himself. Decided to break Mbappe's nose in the Euros. So yeah, I think it's a good signing for us, and I'm not just saying that because I know who he is. When I kicked ball with him, I knew he was good. But then I saw a comp of him the other day. I think it was Saturday night, and I didn't realise he was that good. But from my perspective, if he's half as good as his brother was, then we've got a hell of a player because his brother was a hell of a player, let me tell you. And I mean, shout out to his brother as well because he did help me out quite a lot as a sort of young player as well. But yeah, I'm excited by the signing of Kevin Danso 100%. I mean, the last lad we got that's from Milton Keynes didn't work out too bad. Do you know what I'm saying? So, he's got no pressure in that sense. But yeah, obviously a little bit devastated for Dragoshin, really. Didn't feel like it was an ACL type of injury, which sounds really strange. But obviously when the incident occurred, when he went off, it looked like he just jarred his knee. So the fact he's done his ACL was a bit like, bloody hell, it's kind of come out of nowhere, really. And I did feel for him. I know he's taken a bit of criticism and a lot of stick, but I think he's one of those that actually has just slowly but surely got to grips with what we want from him, and put in some half decent performances. I'd say I just don't think he's had help around him, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to sort of Archie Gray, because Archie Gray has just been absolutely phenomenal. But Dragoshin hasn't been helped. I think Porro's been running on fumes for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and he's starting to get exposed, and I think that's also highlighting Dragoshin's weaknesses, if you like. So yeah, it's a little bit gutted, but it just feels like that 1 in 1 out type of thing. I know we didn't necessarily sell Dragoshin, but we've lost him to injury. So it just feels like just when we feel like we can get ahead, something happens and we're sort of back to square one again. But no, absolutely buzzing for Kev. Yeah, he's got the move of his life, really. I was a bit surprised though from his perspective he's chosen us, because obviously there were other offers on the table. I know Juventus was one, Wolves was another one, and I think 18 months time is a World Cup, and I'm looking at it and going, well, when Romero's back, is Kev really going to play? He's got to stake his claim, of course, and sort of make himself undroppable, but I think every Spurs fan would probably agree that Romero and Van der Ven are sort of first choice, and whoever's coming in is going to be squad players. But I think as a squad option, he's probably going to go under the radar. A lot of international experience playing for Austria, Champions League experience, having played for Lens, and I think he played against Arsenal last year in the Champions League and did really, really well. So yeah, like I say, absolutely buzzing for my mate Kev, put it that way.
It's a great segue as well, obviously, to move across, Nelson, to Arsenal. And obviously for you, what was your kind of take on the transfer window? Because obviously we all know that Arteta wants that striker. We haven't seen that come through the door. What have you kind of made?
They signed Isak and Watkins. What are you on about?
Behave, was.
We actually signed Fabrizio Romano. That's who we signed. He's not inside. I wanted to first point out, before I get onto Arsenal, that I agree with Wes everything about Kev, because I think he's a great player, and I am a big fan of the French league. Wes knows that. And watching him at Lens was very special. I think he had formed a really great partnership. Him as a back three, I can't remember his centre back partner, but also the goalkeeper at the time as well. They were really good, solid back three, and they were that Lens side that led them to the Champions League were absolutely phenomenal with Fofana and all of that. And I just wanted to give Kev his props. So I do think he will do well at Spurs as well. But heading on to Arsenal, like I said, I told you guys, we signed air. We signed absolutely nothing, and it's a thing where I don't really know what the Arsenal board were thinking. I think we all, as fans, knew, and all other teams knew what Arsenal needed. And I don't know if that game against City impacted the last few days of Arsenal's transfer window to think, oh, do you know what? Well, we've smoked the champions 5-1. We're good. We're good. In my opinion, I think that's foolish and actually naive of them to potentially not still make a move. Obviously, in the January transfer window, we know in history, like, who do you go for? Who's out there? Who's on the market? It's very slim these days in the January transfer market. I was very surprised for the bid of Ollie Watkins. I didn't know where that came from. I understand the reasoning why to buy him at this point when you're trying to win now. I completely get it. But as well, it reminded me of, I'm sure you guys will agree, it reminded me of the 40 million and £1 bid for Luis Suarez. Like, in my opinion, like, that was just to tell fans, hey, look, we've just done something. We've popped something in the market, but really, we're not really going to go for him. And obviously, it looked like the rumors were saying that Zubamendi, the midfielder, was actually close to coming rather than a forward. So we're just there thinking, like, what are you doing? Because we knew that Bukayo Saka out potentially, who knows, for the season. You're thinking you need a winger and you're thinking you need a striker and maybe someone again in defense. But yeah, I'm very disappointed with the window, but I'm also not surprised because at this rate, these boys after the game against Newcastle will probably go for warm weather training, relax, do all that BS, and then come back. And then they'll probably score a couple goals and the whole media will forget about it. And then the cycle will continue. And it's quite frustrating, Arsenal fans, because we know we need a marquee signing as a striker. But disappointing, not surprised. I was surprised and impressed with some other teams, but in terms of from an Arsenal perspective, yeah, drab.
Quite nice it was to actually us to do some bit of business that we need. I know not to the full extent, but for Arsenal not to do anything when they need to capitalise on it, it's a bit like, oh, Fez.
Yeah, although I think Arteta keeps saying that it has to be the right player, and I think every manager will turn around and say the same thing. I just don't think for what Arsenal need and want, I don't think that player was available in January. That's why they haven't gone and done anything in January. Yes, we know they need, well, from an Arsenal point of view, they need a striker really to effectively sort of elevate them to real sort of title contenders and challenges year upon year upon year. I think they go in for Benjamin Sesko in the summer. I really do, because I think they'll get priced out of a bid for Isak. And I think Ollie Watkins' age profile isn't on his side. So I think they will go out for Benjamin Sesko in the summer, who I actually think will be quite a good addition for them lot, unfortunately. So I think they'll target him. He's still relatively young, but got a lot of experience behind him already. And I think that's going to be the one that they go for. But it was interesting because obviously Nelson mentioned there that he might have needed a more rounded forward, if you like, someone that can play across the front line. So I guess that's probably where the links with Matthias Tell came in, because Tell can play across, all spaces across that front line. But yeah, I think Arsenal's recruitment department, if they're any good, would have probably already gone, right, summer window, probably the work is probably already done in terms of shortlisting players. They know who they want potentially to get in the summer. January's would have probably been done already. And it was just a case of, look, if there is something, we'll do it. I think from obviously Spurs' point of view, I think our signings have been accelerated 6 months because of the situation that we find ourselves in, whereas Arsenal aren't in that moment. Yes, I know they've got a few injuries, but not to the extent and the level of Tottenham. So I think we've had to really sort of accelerate our business and shift it forward 6 months, whereas I think Arsenal were just remaining calm at the moment. And yeah, I think in the summer you'll see a bit more movement, I think, from Arsenal in terms of getting players out the door and then also coming in as well.
And like you say, if we all keep saying it, January is a difficult kind of window. But like I say, for Spurs, it was we have to get players in regardless, or we're going to have no one left.
Yeah, I think January is a difficult window for some, because if you see the likes of obviously Aston Villa and the caliber of player that they've been able to bring into the football club, obviously they've got aspirations of trying to stay in and around that top four and stay in the Champions League. So yeah, and I think Ipswich spent a little bit of money. They got in a few players as well. So January's only difficult if you make it difficult for me personally, because I think there are players available or they are out there. It's just whether as a football club you want to be serious enough to go and test the water, or are you going to be brave and bold enough in that transfer market to go, right, we know we need X, Y, and Z, let's see if we can get it. And yeah, as I said earlier, I think Spurs left themselves really short, especially in midfield. Like, we're still crying out for that number 6. I think Douglas Luiz on loan would have been the perfect option. I know there was talk of him going back to City, but I think he would have come in, hit the ground running straight away. He doesn't really need time to adapt and settle to English football because he knows it already. And the fact he was made available was even worse, I think, from Spurs' perspective, knowing that we need a player in that position. And even the fact now you've got Basuma with 18 months left on his contract, and his form's been really hit and miss this year. So yeah, I think if Douglas Luiz was to come in, that would have provided some really good competition, I think, for our midfield. But like I say, January's only difficult if you want it to be difficult.
And Spurs always like doing things difficult. But hey ho, let's talk about some teams that have actually done some big business, Nelson, because Villa, man, like, what is going on over there? It's incredible.
Hey, that water's different in Brumtown, I'll tell you that. Because I was absolutely shocked. Like, if you had to give a grade for certain teams, I think Villa would either get probably a B+ or an A-, because they did really well with their recruitment. And as Wes pointed out as well, the fact that you could tell that their target is to stay in and around. They have aspirations of staying in and around kind of the top 4 and looking to build on their, getting into the Champions League from last season as well. Obviously, you're going to have to wait and see for those 6 months to see if these signings, get up to speed. Obviously, the only one that can get up to speed is a certain United lad from Manchester. And I think if Rashford can hit the ground running, this is a nice, restart for him, in my opinion. I think for him, and depending on what Emery, I don't know how Emery's planning to use him. Obviously, the fact that John Duran has now left could mean that he could go in the middle. But I think most people, and I'm sure Wes, you'd agree with me, that his best position is probably down the left. He seems to kill. In my opinion, I think he's more of a killer down the left-hand side. He utilizes pace really well there. What does that do for the other players in the squad? I don't know, but I think it adds a lot more depth, especially for what they are trying to do moving forward. So Disasi as well on loan is a good signing for me. Asensio, you never know, but I think potentially the fact that Emery speaks Spanish and also Andres Garcia from Levante could do something as well, and I think that could help them settle into the club. So Rashford being the big signing for them, but I think it's been an overall good window for them. I was impressed with some other teams, but I wanted to get everyone else's thoughts on Villa, because Villa really went out there and did the business.
They did, didn't they, Wes? It's a madness, honestly. When you kept looking at all the obviously the transfer news and stuff, and I'm thinking, Villa again? Like, it's a madness, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Monchi's playing Football Manager or something from like 2019 or something. Signing these like wonder kids or whatever. Obviously Asensio and Rashford. It's almost like the failed wonder kid transfer window, I think, for Villa. I think it's going to be really interesting what happens with Marcus Rashford now. And I think this loan isn't sort of make or break, but I think we discover a lot about him as a character and as a person in this period now till the end of the season. Like, is he going to come and be really sort of refreshed and play with loads of freedom? And then that kind of poses questions around what he's been doing at Man United. Like, is it the environment at United where for him it's become a little bit stale, a little bit samey, and he just needs that refresh? Or is it a case of, look, quite simply, the gaffer just doesn't fancy him? And you get that, at times. And that happens. Asensio for me is the real big sort of shock and surprise, how they've managed to sort of prize him out of PSG. I know he wasn't playing regularly, but if he is close to sort of rediscovering any type of form that he had at Real Madrid, at Aston Villa, mate, they are cooking. He's a similar type of profile though to Coutinho. So that's going to be even more interesting, and it's going to be even more interesting now to see what happens with Morgan Rogers, who's been phenomenal this season. So whether I know Rogers is probably a little bit more versatile, can play across pretty much all those front four positions, but I don't think he's droppable really at the moment for Villa. So yeah, I think Villa may have missed a little bit of a trick, although again, I'll go back to it earlier, like the players may not have been available at this moment in time, but I think now they've sold Duran, they might need a number 9. But it was interesting to see what they did with Louis Barry as well. So they pulled him back on loan from Stockport, and he ripped up League One first half of the season, like ripped it up. And then he come back, and you're going, right, is he going to get a look in at Villa? And I think people were wondering if he did get a look in, what he could do. But the fact is, they put him on a new contract and then shipped him off to Hull, who were in a relegation battle. And I think that was the surprising thing, because I think there were a lot of suitors for Louis Barry in the Championship, a lot higher up. So the fact that he's gone to Hull again was even more interesting. But I think Villa maybe in the summer now, again looking the striker market for a number 9, but they have someone at the helm in Monchi who is like one of the gods, if you like, when it comes to player recruitment. Like if you look back at his time at like Sevilla in particular, the way he was able to pick up like young players for like next to nothing, and then Sevilla were just selling them on for, absolute fortunes. So yeah, if I'm a Villa fan, I'm excited by what we've brought in. A little bit gutted to see Duran leave, but he's got a world tour going on, so it is what it is. And yeah, I think the summer now for Villa becomes even more interesting, because I think they've got a few gaps that they may just need to fill.
It's going to be interesting, like I say, being a Villa fan for the rest of the season and going on beyond into the summer. But Nelson, was there any other teams for you that kind of stood out in this January transfer window?
I made a list, because these clubs for me, I just quickly look on my list, simply because of the signings that they made. So I'm going to start off with Palace, because of the 2 signings that they made in Ben Chilwell, who I think could revive his career at Palace after not getting a look in with Maresca at Chelsea. And I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but obviously Roman Esse as well, who came in, scored a goal on his debut. Coming from my local club, Millwall, that's where I grew up. Obviously, I don't know why I should be affiliated with them, but I'm just saying it was where I grew up, and that was my local club. But he's come in, and who knows what he could do. So I think Palace, in terms of addressing the immediate, that could be something as well. If I continue with my list, obviously Villa was one of them. You guys were one. I think you guys had also a good window. Another 2 teams were City. City actually did what they needed to do, and I think one thing that impresses me about City is that with all their money, except for Grealish, Wes will point this out as well, is their signings aren't really like I wouldn't say top-notch signings. I think the word I'm looking for is they're not expensive, lucrative signings. Their recruitment seems to know how to get these players, like a Haaland for like 60 million, or Mahrez for like 50. Like, you're looking at these world-class players, and City can get them for that price. For me, is phenomenal. And I think their track record ever since Pep's been here to get those kind of signings for that price, I think you've got to give their hats off to them. And I think they've addressed certain things. Who knows how the signings will do? Obviously, me personally, being a great fan of, players, Marmoush was the one that shocked me. And when he went, I was like, wow, because he's tearing it up in the Bundesliga. So we'll see how that turns out. And then my last 2 teams, that I had was West Ham for their immediate signings. Obviously, they brought back James Ward-Prowse, but I think Evan Ferguson in particular could be something that, because Antonio, I think his age profile as well, he's looking that he's not playing much games. But Ferguson for me, and obviously him playing with Graham Potter before at Brighton, could work wonders for them. And as you mentioned, Ipswich. I think Ipswich, you've got to give credit to Ipswich. Jaden Philogene, Julio Enciso. So I think you've got to give credit as well to Ipswich kind of going out there and doing that. So those are my clubs that kind of impressed me. I don't think there was one signing in particular that made me go, wow. But those were the teams that in the Premier League I was very impressed with.
No, and I think it goes back to like what obviously Wes was saying earlier. And the fact is, if you need to go and get something, January isn't difficult, is it, Wes? Like you're saying. I mean, for you, do you agree with Nelson on those kind of clubs? Is there any other ones you want to chuck in there?
I don't agree. Obviously, I don't agree with him on the Tottenham one, because we're still short, in my opinion. I liked I understand where Nelson's going with the City thing, but it just screams that they're not getting done by, for these FFP charges, because they've just splashed 100 odd million in January and whacked Haaland on a 9.5 year contract. So we know what's happening there. City are getting a fine at worst. Ipswich was the interesting one for me. I think they need a goalkeeper. They did sign Alex Palmer from West Brom, but I don't think that's enough. I think they could have probably gone and got out a different goalkeeper, because I don't think Alex Palmer, for me, is not one that people are speaking about like every week when it comes to EFL. And I think, I've watched Muric, and I think it genuinely, Ipswich went to Burnley and ended up with the wrong goalkeeper, because James Trafford at the moment has kept 21 clean sheets. Burnley have conceded 9 goals all year in the Championship. It's a phenomenal feat. But I think Trafford has suitors higher up the Premier League food chain, if you like. But the thing with City, just going back to them, is they recognise they're in a problem, and they helped their manager to try and get out of the problem. And that's the big difference between, I would say, City and Spurs. It's not the fact that City have spent 100 odd million and we've spent what we've spent. I think it was 12.5 on Kinski, 10 million loan fee for Tell, and whatever we're spending on Kev. But it's more of the fact of the people in the hierarchy understand that the manager needs help, and he needs help in these positions. So what City have done is they've gone and got players for those positions. And watching City on the bits that I did watch on Sunday, I'm not surprised they went and got 2 centre-backs, because Akanji was all over the place. Like, that is the worst I've seen Manuel Akanji play in a City shirt. And I was always a little bit surprised by that move anyway, because I didn't think he was the most mobile in terms of centre-backs. And I understand that Ruben Diaz is a huge miss for City, but yeah, I can see the sort of rebuild taking place at City, and I think it's probably happened obviously 6 months earlier than the club planned. Because I think they were looking to do it in the summer, but circumstances meant they've gone a little bit early, but that's okay for them. So yeah, I think the one that surprises me the most though is Man United. Really, I don't think they've really done a lot, and I think I was expecting United to be busier, to start a little bit of a clear out, whether that was, for example, cutting losses on Casemiro, or trying to ship Eriksen off. Because everybody can see United's midfield is a massive problem. And they've got midfielders there that aren't mobile, and you can't have Casemiro and Eriksen next to each other because they can't move anymore, especially Casemiro. And I thought they might have just pushed to see if they could get Ugarte on a permanent. Obviously, Amarim's worked with him before at Sporting Lisbon, knows him really well. And I think Ugarte is key for how Amarim wants to play at United. But yeah, I just thought United would have done a little bit more. I know they've trimmed the wage bill slightly, but for me, there's still a lot that needs to be done at Man United, and I thought they would have done it gradually, as opposed to, it appears now they're going to have to do a massive clear out almost in the summer, and then look to recruit in different ways. I know they've got PSR constraints and things like that, so again, it would have made sense for me, from a United point of view, for them to look at doing a little bit now to try and ease that pressure then in the summer, because now I think for Man United, all eyes are going to be on them in the summer, 100%.
And it is quite interesting actually to put it on its head and be like, which is the team that you would have thought would have done more? Because like I say, they're not that far off us in the league either, and obviously they're not doing great either. So Nelson, I'm going to throw that one back at you as well. Is there somebody else in the league that you think would have done a little bit more, given the circumstances they might find themselves in?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I think Newcastle didn't make any signings. Not sure what Eddie Howe was thinking moving into January. Obviously, they got rid of Miguel Almiron, who we knew was really instrumental getting them into the Champions League. So I thought Newcastle could have done something. I'm not sure where Slot potentially was going with Liverpool. I think their team right now, people would say, looks perfect. So I don't think they would look to make any signings, but you never know. Sometimes big clubs like Liverpool just end up going. Another one I think, yes, could be from a disappointing level is the fact that you could tell that Leicester have had a really rough start under Ruud van Nistelrooy. And again, like Wes has pointed out with City, I don't think the club or the hierarchy have gone out and pinpointed areas in which they could improve on. I think I can't remember their winger, but I think he's out for the season. I can't pronounce his name.
Fatawi.
Yeah, that's it. He's out for the season. I know he could have been pivotal moving forward and could have been part of Van Nistelrooy's plans. But you're thinking, because you got to reach that target, that threshold of 40 points. You're thinking, why not make some immediate signings for the next 6 months? And Leicester could have done that, and hopefully they don't rue the chance and that they missed. But you could argue Southampton as well, if they could have made any more signings, because you're looking at them and you're thinking, well, you're certain to go down. And Wolves, I think the only thing that the Wolves done was obviously announce Cunha's lengthy contract. Are you thinking there you sell him and then go on and use that money to buy some more players that can increase the depth in the squad? So I would say kind of the clubs in and around the bottom half could have done a bit more to help their current situation, I would probably say. So that's kind of my take on it.
Like getting ready for the championship sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously at work there's a lot of Saints fans. And they're kind of thinking to themselves, right, we're ready for the championship now, because I think they got rid of Stuart Armstrong to West Brom, with the same with Will Lancashire as well, I think, Wes. So that'd be quite an interesting thing for them as well. But yeah, it was, like I say, it was an interesting January transfer window. Like you guys have kind of alluded to, all the dealings that have been done. Again, Villa, just absolute madness. I keep going back to them because it was just crazy. But it will be interesting to see how the rest of the season kind of pans out, whether these new recruits will do the business. Obviously, from a Spurs perspective, we'd need them to do the business, basically, to try and obviously elevate the squad a little bit more. But it's time to move on to you guys' favourite part of the show, my least favourite part of the show, and that is to talk about FPL. And I'm probably going to say as well, when can we start putting our new signings in? That might be one for you, Nelson or Wes. When can you start putting new signings in?
Immediately, like they're there, they're on the system immediately. As soon as they sign, prices are revealed for the players, and you can just go buy them immediately. My brother, who is a City fan, immediately put Marmouche like 2 hours later. So you can do it immediately, guys.
I'm gonna do it then. I need to do something.
And I think Tell's classed as a midfielder as well, so that's an interesting one. I think
good. That's really good.
I'm gonna put him in. Right, who have I got first? I think this is Wes's.
Yeah, boy, look at that. Czechoslovakia, 89 points. Obviously, that's probably my highest scoring week that I've ever had on FPL. Chris Wood did an absolute madness at the weekend with his performance against Brighton. If anybody tells me again that Lewis Dunk should play for England, I'm going to shoot them because he's awful. Salah obviously doing bits against Bournemouth, which was a difficult one for me because obviously I got Kirkes and Huijsen. But thought, actually, difficult game, I'll leave them on the bench. Munoz did really, really well for me as well. So, yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing. I was a little bit disappointed with the likes of sort of Ahmad, Rodgers, Vissa and Isak. So I think, the fact that I've had some sort of lower performing players in terms of points, the fact I've got 89, I think I'm absolutely buzzing with, to be fair.
Yeah, we won't talk about what points I've got. Let's move on.
Get them up, Hollie.
That's right. We've got Nelson next. So look, it's my sister trying to call me on the screenshot. Right, go on, Nelson. Do your thing.
I'm very happy with this is the highest points that I've got this season. I was expected to break the 100-point barrier with this, considering that I've triple cap. As you can see, I've triple captain Mo Salah. It's a double game week. I couldn't miss the opportunity, and Wes made a good point in the fact that it is Bournemouth. Bournemouth have been absolutely exceptional this season, but I took the risk, and most of Salah's big points that he's earned in fantasy have all been away from home. So I took that into account and decided I'm going to triple captain, and I do think he will do well again in the Merseyside derby. So I prioritize the double game weeks. As you can see, I've got Iliman and Diaz as well, and I knew that him potentially with a really good game against Leicester, he could earn me some points, and he did. So the fact that he might not score against Liverpool, but just earn me another 2 points for me, I'm chuffed with that, because overall he's done better than. Well, I had Mateta last week, got rid of Mateta, who's got 10 points, but India could get that for me. Now, Trent is the weird one because Trent did great on the weekend, but if he's injured, hopefully he has a lengthy rest to then, come back for the game against Everton. But if not, then obviously I lose out some points there. And if you can see off my bench, the first person who is there, the brother from another Madai, Anthony, I was very annoyed because I thought, Wolves, especially with Rodgers scoring a hat-trick in the Champions League, I'm like, form going into this game, they're going to do well. And a lot of people probably did that and didn't think Elanga would go off. But Elanga has a good home record, so I will consider that in the future. So Robinson, I have to give a shout out because this guy, wherever he goes and wherever he plays, his assists at left back, I think, he's been Fulham's best player for me this season. And I want to give him his props because he's been sensational. But I think I might have to look, I don't know, next week, Holly, I might get rid of Anthony Gordon. I don't know why, but something seems to be off with Newcastle. And apart from Isak, who's probably guaranteed to get you a goal, I'm trying to look at maybe other cheaper midfielders that could do the business for me. But I always say target any Southampton and Leicester games because those are the games that I think where goals galore would happen. So that's I think I'm going to end up with 120 points. I'm going to predict, and we'll have a look next week, obviously, when we review before the next game week.
Nelson, I tried to target a Leicester game and they ended up fucking beating us. So cheers for that, mate.
Oh dear. Right, do I even bother putting mine up? I mean, look, I've got a grand total of 31 points, ladies and gents.
Hey,
that is rough.
Whoa.
Listen, we were all in the trenches at one point, Holly. We were all in the trenches.
But I think I've just been in the trenches this whole time.
Well, if you look at your squad, I think you're looking at the fact that, well, that's kind of hard because you can't bring in Haaland. Well, you can bring in Gay because he's a defender. But because I think you've played your striker, it might be hard to put in someone else because all your midfielders and attackers have played. So I was thinking another 12 points could be there, but unfortunately not.
I'm thinking there, take Eze out because he's not really been doing much. Put Haaland in, go maybe a bit old school 4-4-2 or whatever, and then you'll be in. I'll
be sorted. I just need to remember to do it. Do you know what the thing was? I got really into the NFL one. You just have to pick who's going to win. And it was fine. It was marvelous. That's all I had to do. So I won that. And then I was like, sod this. I don't need to do this. I'm shit at this. But I will try. I'd say it every week. I actually will try and sit down.
You need a wild card, Holly. That's all you need. I think a wild card. Sorry, I've just seen the comment.
Just throwing it out there. My dad has never played FPL before in his life. So, Holly, you're going to have to hold that one, I'm afraid. You're going to have to hold that L right there.
I know. I need to do something. I will sort it out. When can I sort it out? The end of this game week?
Yeah, so at the end of this game, no, you can actually start making your plans for your next immediately. You can always have the option to start with game week 25 anyways, the next one. So I would say make a wild card, make your transfers. I would always say wait, obviously, because obviously you got the EFL today, and then obviously after the Merseyside derby, I say wait and then go and strike.
The Merseyside derby's not till next week.
Not till next week. So we still got a while before the next game week to make the thing. And I think people need to consider that the EFL's cup ties this week will affect game week 25 and 29. So whoever qualifies will end up playing, whoever proceeds to the final will end up playing 2 games and then miss out on game week 29. So those are things to consider. But I'll probably remind it again come game week 29. I'm there. I'm ready. I'm trying to win. I'm trying to win all my leagues. I'm trying to win all my leagues this season. Like I'm coming. I'm second in your table, Holly. I feel good. I'm second in Holly's Hotspurs. I overtook Lauren. Sorry, Lauren. I've got to call you out again. I overtook you, and I'm ready. I'm trying to go for the top spot.
No, I mean I've just given up. I think I'm like near the bottom of my own league. So that's
the worst bit is, Holly, I gave not only you but everyone a head start as well. I gave you like a 3-4 week head start as well, and I'm just like I'm absolutely come back. We're talking redemption, La Ramatonda, and Czechoslovakia, mate. I'm telling you.
Oh dear, yeah, no, I think I'm pretty much done and dusted. But I will make some changes. I will throw a wild card in there, so at least. Hopefully next week I've got something more interesting.
Yeah, Holly, you need more changes than Tupac. Honestly, like you're gonna have to sort that out, like big time. I
might just delete the whole app and then boom, don't matter anymore. But no,
that Football Manager like pick rotated squad option. That's what you need.
Yeah, just pick it for me and all.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I say, make sure you sort out your FPL teams so you don't end up like me. Because it's going to be a strong couple of weeks. Obviously, like Nelson said, like Wesley said, lots of changes to look out for. I will be making lots of changes. But yeah, it's been an interesting one tonight to go over the transfer window. I've actually really enjoyed it. So let's go around the table. Let's say our goodbyes. So Nelson, thank you again this evening for joining us. My dad did text me to say that you had conceded a goal, but it's gone ruled out for offside. So you still only got 2-0 aggregate. But no, thank you, Nelson, for joining us. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
Thank you for having me again. It's been good to have the gang back, and you can find me on Instagram at N and then my surname Natumba, so N Natumba 25 on Instagram.
Gosh, lovely jubbly. And now you can go watch Arsenal hopefully lose. And also, Wes, thank you again for joining us. I'm ready for this outro. It's been a long little while since I've listened to it, so far away.
Yeah, see, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Holly, and this is what happens when you actually turn up, and you bother to turn up, you actually enjoy yourself, so that's always good fun. But yeah, where can everybody find me? Twitter's at Wezo10, unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account, as everybody knows. I'm waiting to see, actually, if the club announce him in the Legends game that we've got coming up against AC Milan as to whether I go or not. If he's playing, I'm going to do my damnest to get a ticket, because I need to see the GOAT one last time for one last dance. Instagram's at Wezo32. We'll be at the next Spurs home game, which I believe is Man United after the FA Cup is all sorted. And then obviously Kofa MK or Kickoff Football Academy across your socials for anything football coaching related in Dele Alli, Leah Williamson and Kevin Danso country.
Gosh, I like that little addition there, Wes. I need to keep that one up. But like I say, thank you to everybody that's tuned in tonight, that's watched, that's commented, that's going to go back and rewatch this. I really, really appreciate it. And like I say, Hollie Hotspur Live will be back Monday to dissect the Villa game. And then hopefully we'll be back next Wednesday as well for another show. I feel like we should get the board out again, Wes. I feel like it should make an appearance back.
Okay.
So we'll give that a go. But like I say, thank you all for watching once again. And till next time, I always say this. Come on, you Spurs. I'm sorry.
Come on, you Spurs.